Ahearn Funeral Home, founded in 1920 by William James Ahearn. It was a small family-ran business that had two locations. The first location was 315 Crockett Street, and the second location was at 1506 Marshall Street, as you can see in this picture here. Now, I normally don't collect matchbooks, but this one's so rare I had to get it. It's the one and only picture of Ahearn Funeral Home that I can find. If you visit newspapers.com and you look up old articles from the Shreveport Times, from the 1920s up until the 1930s, a lot of prominent figures of Shreveport were buried under the direction of Ahearn Funeral Home. Now, the opening date for this place was 1920. I'm not sure when it closed because I could find no record of its closing, but I'm thinking that it was around the late 1930s or possibly the early to mid 1940s, because after the 1930s, I could find no record of this place. So it wasn't around very long. But this small funeral home was ran by Mr. Ahearn and his family members. And one of the related stories to this funeral home that stuck out to me the most was the story of Janice Hunsicker. Janice Hunsicker died in March of 1927 at the age of 19 years old. She died in a car crash at the intersection of Fairfield and Wilkinson Street. So the story goes that back in March of 1927, two cars collided at the intersection of Fairfield and Wilkinson Street. 4 occupants in one car and a lone driver in the other car. 4 people that were riding in one car were J.W. Hires, a Janice Hunsicker, Merle Moon, and a Hugh M. Sneed. These 4 people were riding in one car, and the lone driver of the other car was a F.J. Zuzak. Everyone sustained injuries, but Janice Hunsicker was the lone person who died and result of that accident. She was 19 years old, and she was a resident of 1543 Stevens Avenue. Now, that house no longer stands on that street. I think there's just like a few houses on that street, and then there's like a children's hospital across the street from where that house used to stand. Janice Hunsicker was the granddaughter of Henry Hunsicker, who was once a judge, and she was the daughter of Henry Hunsicker Jr., who was a former state treasurer and also a local Shreveport attorney. And she was the niece of a W.E. Monkhouse. Now, that name sounds familiar, doesn't it? Yes, Monkhouse, the street that has all those old dilapidated hotels that leads up to the airport on the west side. That's what that street's named after, W.E. Monkhouse. W.E. Monkhouse was a lieutenant of the Shreveport Police Department. The first thing that comes to mind when I read this story was, okay, this is 1927, and these two cars collided at this intersection and caused a fatal accident. How fast were these cars going? Now, I didn't know that cars back in 1927 could reach a speed to where if they collided, they would cause a serious accident or fatal accident. But, I read that even Model Ts back then could reach a top speed up to 45 miles an hour. And the article does not say what kind of cars these people were riding in, but these are rich. These were considered like the more upper class rich people, so they were probably driving cars that were even faster than that. There's a bit of a discrepancy here because now there's 2 different death dates for her dad, though, because there's one death date that says he died in 1916, and then there's another obituary that says that he died in 1927, February of 1927. That's a month before his daughter passed away. His daughter passed away in March of 1927. He passed away in February of 1927, according to this obituary. So there's 2 different dates of his death. So that's confusing. Like, which one is it? And there's also 2 different addresses listed here. When Henry died in 1927, His listed address was 1191 Louisiana Avenue. When his daughter passed away, her address was listed as 1543 Stevens Avenue. So did the family have two homes? Or, I mean, they were rich people. They were considered rich. So maybe they had two homes. But there's two death dates. Those death dates are confusing. Like, you can't die twice. Okay. I think I got it now. You have Henry Hunsicker Jr. with two different birth dates and death dates. One of these guys had to have been Henry Hunsicker III. See right here? The one that was born in 1881, he had to have been number 3, Henry Hunsicker III. And Janice was his daughter. Yeah, this was probably a mistake that was submitted by Find a Grave. Whoever submitted this obituary to Find a Grave, they probably made that mistake. But yeah, you can't have one person die twice. So one of these guys, I'm thinking that the guy that was born in 1881, he was Henry Hunsicker III, not Jr. Yeah, this has to be two different guys. This has to be two different people, because one of the Hunsickers, it has listed here that one of the Hunsickers died at North Louisiana Sanitarium, and the other Hunsicker died at home at 1191 Louisiana Avenue. But they have them both listed as a state treasurer, a former state treasurer, and a manager of the Shreveport Country and Golf Club. One of these guys, either Hunsicker Jr. or Hunsicker III, lived at 1191 Louisiana Avenue, and that house is long gone. There's nothing there now but the concrete staircase and the grassy lot that sits behind it. Not only was he a state treasurer, he was also a Shreveport attorney. He practiced law for more than 40 years, and he also engaged in land claims. That was most of what he did during his years of being an attorney in Shreveport. Okay, and according to his obituary, where he supposedly died in 1916, that states that his funeral took place at his father's residence, which was at 554 Jordan Street. So it's a very confusing story, man. It's like they've mentioned like 3 different Henry Hunsickers here, and his father supposedly died way back in 1871. So who's this other guy? There's like 4 different Henry Hunsickers listed here, mentioned here. So I don't. This is very confusing, man. But his funeral took place at 554 Jordan Street. Okay, I got it now. You got Henry Hunsicker III. He was born 1881, died 1916. So he died before his dad did, Hunsicker Jr. Okay, I got it. Because it says here at the bottom of this newspaper clipping that his funeral was held at his dad's house, his father's residence. So Henry Hunsicker III died in 1916, and his dad, Henry Hunsicker Jr., died in 1927, a month before his granddaughter died. Okay, I got it now. And that address still exists. That house still stands. So his funeral took place in this house over 100 years ago. That's kind of creepy. Like, just, knowing that somebody's dead body was laid out in your living room 100-something years ago. That's kind of creepy. But that was the norm back then. Up until the mid to 1930s, I believe. Funeral homes back then, they weren't as advanced and equipped as they are today. So when people passed away back in those times, their relatives and friends would organize their funerals and hold their funerals at their residence, at the residence of the deceased. So a lot of the older neighborhoods that surround downtown Shreveport, like Highland, the Stoner Hill area, South Highlands, Queensboro, Allendale, a lot of those neighborhoods that surround downtown, those homes are like 90 to 120 years old. A lot of those homes, and some of those homes still stand today. And some of those homes actually had funerals take place in the living room. Okay, right here you have a Malarker and Moore Associates. Their address was 1510 Marshall. So 2 spots over would be 1506. So this is the spot where Ahearn Funeral Home sat. At first I thought it was across the street, but that's where the odd numbers are. The even numbers are on this side. So Malarker and Moore Associates was 1510, and then 1 spot over is 1508, and then the next spot is 1506. That's where Ahearn sat.